Well, welcome to another episode of the Billy Ho Show. And what I've got here is a blowtorch, and these come out in the 40s and 50s. And what you use these for was to take the paint off the weatherboard. So you heat it all off, burnt it, and then you got your scraper and scraped it all off. Or maybe you wanted a sort of a sticky bolt, rusted on, so you heated up the bolt, heated up the nut, and got a spanner on it, and off it come. Or if you're using it in the kitchen, you could have your cream brulee, custard sitting there, and you get this and go, and then it goes tink, tink, tink. Perfect. So you could do a cream brulee with one of these as well. But they're a versatile little thing for the time. It was an instant source of heat, and you could do a lot of things with them. This one's got a bit of a big band around the bottom there that's been put on to hold the handle on. Obviously the handles come off at some stage. Bit of Kiwi ingenuity with this ring to put it back on. Anyway, the blowtorch. So let's get started with the show. Last week we did a story looking at Uden Bros White trucks that they used in their logging operations. Notably, two of their trucks were White 3000 cab overs. The White 3000 came out in 1949 and was the first tilt cab. Tilt cabs, of course, making it very easy to work on the engine. Anyway, one of the 4 White 3000s that came to New Zealand still exists. The late Bert Watchorn had it for many years before selling it to Gavin Abbot. Gavin Abbot still has it, and we're going to talk to Gavin now about that truck. Now, what we've got here is a White 3000, and you were saying before that only 4 ever came to New Zealand.
Yes, there was.
And this is one of them.
This is one of the 4. The Cable Price were the agents for them, and they sold 2 to Uden Brothers in Pataroo. They were logging contractors, and one went to Dick Twistleton in Gisborne on logging, and the 4th one went to T.P. Gilroy in Christchurch as a transporter. I was talking to Jim Uden many years ago, and he said that when they bought the first one, in the interim, the black budget came out in 1958 and the sales tax was increased, and Udens were of a second thought whether they would take the second truck because they were so expensive and the price had gone up with the increase in sales tax. But they needed the truck, so they took it.
So did this come in from America and they were prepared to pay all the extra money in 1958? Of course, you still only buy British.
Yes.
So they must have sort of spent a small fortune to have this particular truck.
They had been running the bonneted models and had a good run from them, so they standardised because it was the same petrol motor in both models.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're saying this came out in 1949?
Yes.
And it's the first tilt cab in the world?
Yes, it was the first mass-produced tilt cab in the world, and it was quite a sensation because not only was it a tilt cab, but it was so far advanced. It had this aerodynamic shape. It had a big flat one-piece windscreen. No gutterings. There's no gutterings on the cab at all. And the pedals inside the cab were pendulum, which was a first. And the big vent in the front there would open out and let the air in, and you could also get into the dashboard. So it had so much of modern thinking in it, but it was very expensive to build, and also it's lined inside with steel as well, and it was very heavy, and those 2 reasons were the downfall from it. But it set the pattern for tilt cab trucks.
I see in the little lunchbox area behind the seat, like the TK Bedford's got and a few other trucks, had the same thing, so a lot of people would have copied that.
That's right. See, that Bedford cab came about 10 years later, but it was styled off this style of cab.
Yeah.
And the aerodynamic shape, of course, was well advanced for that period as well.
Save you a few bucks.
Yes, it would have. Yeah.
Gavin, I've got a size 13 boot, and I put that on that step to get into the truck, and my whole boot sits on it. As opposed to some of the little, you only just get your toe on it to get into some trucks. So when this was available, I guess people went, wow, that's easy to get in and out of.
Yes, well, as I say, the smaller model came out and was mainly used for delivery trucks, and over the years they increased the model sizes into bigger trucks, but the smaller models did have Packard car engines in them, and then they increased them over the years. This is higher because this truck over the years had been repowered with a 671 GM motor. It had an automatic gearbox in it, and it was fitted with a Leyland back end, and they had to set the springs up for the extra weight of the engine, and that's why this is possibly a bit higher than normal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very big steering wheel, very thin steering wheel, and we haven't come to power steering yet.
No, the big wheel was for the leverage, but it's a typical American truck. It was very low geared in the steering as well. You had to really wind around. It could have done with a spinner on it. But it's a very comfortable driving position and a very good view with the big flat windscreen.
You can still see that. It must have been almost a nightmare to all these round curved shapes to make factory. Maybe not.
You could understand that's where the cost came in, why the cab was so expensive. The original truck had a gear lever from the floor here, and it also had a 3-speed auxiliary box and had the 2 gear levers. They were on the floor, but it was all done by linkages, and over the years the linkages got worn, and it was a hit and hope gear change. When I put it together, I got an engine and gearbox out of one of Gibson's Motors buses from New Plymouth, and it only had a 4-speed box, so I cheated and put one of the modern remote gear levers up between the seats. Made it far easier.
And instrument panels, just a basic instrument panel?
Pretty standard.
Yeah.
It was it had a rev counter and a speedo and the fuel and petrol and oil and temperature gauge.
And this sort of demister arrangement, did that actually work?
Well, if you had the vent open underneath, this big screw here operated the vent in the front, and that was your air conditioning, and it would no doubt come up to the top there. Yeah.
Well, certainly plenty of height for a driver of my size, but my guts would get in the way of that steering wheel. I can see that now. When it's almost touching yours. And
yeah, and I'm not very big. And it was a 3-seater cab, which suited the delivery trucks in America.
So 2 guys, 2 offsiders to help. And that little parcel arrangement at the back there, I mean, there's plenty of room on that.
Yes, it's a good parcel rack there.
Yeah. A nice flat, I mean, Comma was trying to get this arrangement, just a flat floor on a cab over, so there's nothing between you and the...
No, it was a similar layout, the Comma, like the Comma with that flat floor. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the little compartments. It allowed you to sort of get a quick look at the engine, but then we'll go around the other side and see how she tilted. Rolling. Gavin, you were talking about just before turning the little knob and the vent open. Is this whole panel the vent?
That panel opens out and you've got access to the gauges and dashboard, and also it acts as a fresh air entry.
That's thinking.
Yeah, that's well ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just looking, there's a gap in behind this grille, but the whole grille...
That all tilts, that's locked in. That tilts with the cab. That's part of the cab.
Let's have a look around the corner. There's another little innovation I thought was pretty good as well. Gavin, there's a little hinge here, which probably means this opens up.
Yes, that's the trapdoor opens, and you've got access down there to your dipstick.
Oh, okay. So
check, and you can get access to the carburetor and that for tuning the motor. And the other side door opens up, and you've got access to your distributor with those small auxiliaries.
Thinking. Yeah. And I think that you could do this with a bed fit. It sort of lifted up.
Yeah, the Bedford one lifted up, but this one hinged, yes.
Thinking. Let's have a look at the back. Gavin, there's I guess this is what tilts the cab.
This is the control for the cab, and remembering that this whole truck, the system is still 6-volt system, and it is an electric screw tilt. It's got electric motor, and it operates a screw system, and this is the control for it. You pull the handle out and turn it to the right, and undo the safety lock, and then the cab tilts up, and then to let it down, you just pull the lever out and turn it the opposite way, and that lowers the cab down.
So you can just hear a little motor going.
You can just hear the little motor going.
Wow.
And this was all designed back in 1949.
So the wires coming out of here is obviously what activates the engines?
That's it. It's all controlled by that switch there.
And the air cleaner, is that a bit of oil reservoir or something on the back there?
That's the header tank for the radiator.
Right. Yep.
The header tank, and of course the oil dipstick and filler is available through this side panel.
Wow.
This truck was originally had a 145 horsepower superpower motor, and it had been replaced with a 671 GM, and it had an automatic gearbox and a Leyland Hippo back end. When I got it, I just got the chassis, cab and front axle. This motor came out of one of Gibson's Motors buses, as did the gearbox, and the back end I got from an international of Deers Phelps from Gisborne. The remote control was a modern one, because the original one was all linkages, and that was not very satisfactory at all.
So a linkage goes doink, 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 doink to get to where you have to go.
That's about it. Yeah, with many joints. Yeah.
Wow.
I struggled about 3 weeks trying to make something work, but it was hopeless. So I just put a modern remote one up top.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just looking at the width of this cab, when you think about a modern day Kenworth, there's not a great deal of difference, but this is built for 3 men, and you get one guy in a Kenworth, and then maybe you get a passenger on the other side, but you're very friendly, when you're travelling along.
It is fairly roomy for the size, considering it does look only a narrow cab.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess because of the size of those mudguards sticking out the side. Yeah.
Full width.
Full width. So we're walking backwards again down here. Is this the way the cab was? Have you put that in, the little hoop to cope with the...
No, that had been fitted in by Uden's possibly.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So was this a logger?
This was, well, they had two of them. One was on logging work and the other was on transporter work. And they sold the transporter one to Richard's Heavy Haulage. They ended up with that. And the other one ended up with a carrier in Pukekohe, and it was a semi-unit, and it had either I think they were pig farmers, and they had a tanker or a semi-trailer with a stock crate on it. And then it was sold back to Ray Vincent, and it ended up on the truck farm at Ohiniwai, slowly rotting away.
Wow. You might remember, folks, the story we did about Tom Gilroy's heavy haulage jobs, and they had one of these, and I think it's towing a locomotive.
Yes.
I'll hunt through the photographs and just see if I can find that truck exactly like this, doing that locomotive pull. But I guess, like we was just saying before, if this has got an Arctic bum sitting on it, it's going to lift a bit of weight off that.
Up the front, yes.
Yeah, make it a bit easier to steer. But 4 came to New Zealand. It's great to see that one still alive, and I'm sure it goes if you...
Yes, yes. I drove it out to the beach a couple of times, and I drove it on the transporter when I sold it to Bert Watchorn for his museum 22 years ago, and I bought it back from him last month when he was disbanding his museum. Wow. So it's back home.
So is there another one in the country?
To my knowledge, there's no others.
No, the other 3 have disappeared.
The other 3 have... Yeah, I followed the other 3 out, and one of them was wrecked on it was in a metal pitted tie happy, and that was cannibalised there. And the Dick Twistleton's one went to Eltham, and it was wrecked on a farm there, and I believe the chassis was used for a bridge on a farm.
Okay.
And they buried the cab in that. And I understand the chassis of Gilroy's may have been made into a crane chassis.
Oh, righto. We were just talking about that last weekend with Charlie Chamberlain about the amount of machinery and trucks and what have you that got buried back in the day. Like the electric trucks, Gordon Malcolm was talking about the electric trucks from the Waihow Dairy Factory.
Waitoa Dairy.
And Waitoa, sorry, and they just buried them.
Yes, yes. Well, that's what happened to most trucks. Even when you look around today, where are all the Bedfords, all the Fords? They all seem to have disappeared. And all those 190 Internationals that were logging, and trucks are slowly disappearing, but the odd one is emerging in a shed somewhere.
That's right.
Like this was deteriorating, lying in the truck farm at Ohenawai.
Wow. Well, it's good to see that this one survived, and congratulations, Gavin, on doing that. And of course, listen to other guys telling their stories. This was sitting in a bin waiting to go to the scrap, and we got it out and rescued it for
Yes.
and they need rescuing.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Anyway, your books, they're still available. This is the website you go to, folks, if you want to buy one of Gavin's books. You still sell them through that guy in Wanganui?
Yes, yes.
Or you can maybe just give Gavin a call, and you can talk trucks, talk books, and buy one.
Be pleased to hear from anyone.
Yeah, talk trucks, that's what they do.
That's what it's all about.
Good on you, mate.
Thank you.
Thank
Phil.
you very much once
Thank
again.
you, Linda.
So there you go, the old white 3000. What I've got here is a copy of Talking Trucks. This is a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the history of New Zealand trucking. And it's all from the programs that I did between 2013 and 2016. I'm going to let this go for $25. So it's a special. So if you'd like your copy, there's my phone number, 027 277 0717. Just send me a text, or email me, billhohepper@extra.co.nz to get your copy. $25 and the history of New Zealand trucks. The second Wheels at Wanaka event is on this coming Easter in 2021, and that's on Saturday and Sunday the 3rd and 4th of April. They're planning a bigger and brighter event with more vehicles and machines working as well as on display. Cars, trucks, tractors, traction engines, scrapers, dozers, graders, the lot. If it's got wheels, it'll be represented at this amazing event. They're having an earth moving only day on Good Friday the 2nd of April, and there's a $10 entry for this. So go to the webpage www.wheelsatwanaka.co.nz for more information. We'll be there filming the event, so we look forward to seeing you there. With me is a trucking legend, Clarry Cartwright, and welcome to our little show, Clarry. And we're at Clarry's place, and Clarry has been in trucking forever. And we've got a little collage of some history here. And looking at the top page on the right-hand side, is that the mount?
That's mount.
And a couple of Homoloi Leylands.
A couple of Leylands, yep.
Yeah, because those Homolois were a hard case looking thing. When you sort of say Leyland, you didn't really think of this big sloping window. These look like huge loads of timber.
Yeah, those are like what they call Jap squares.
Okay, and where did they go?
Japan.
Oh, okay, so they're on the mount ready for export.
Yep.
Oh, gee, I didn't know we sent saw and timber. I thought we just sent logs.
No.
Henderson and Pollard was a great consumer of timber.
They were.
And Uncle Harry used to work out a Rotorua and take his sawn timber to Henderson and Pollard. Normally they go on the rail, but sometimes when the rail, something happened, you get a permit and you could cart out of, cart wherever you wanted to, really.
Yeah, that's right.
Did that ever happen to you?
Yep, same permit lasted for about 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
What were you driving in that time?
Oh, mainly that Scania that I used to own.
Scanias, when did they come into New Zealand? In the,
Oh,
in the
about-
70s?
Yeah, early 70s.
Yeah. Because I'm just, that's European, but the American trucks, the Max and the Kenworths and what have you, came, I think, in the sort of mid to late 60s.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering why the Scania, which apparently is a good European truck, didn't come till later. I guess American might be closer.
Scania was a damn good truck.
Yes.
A damn good truck.
Did you have to grease them?
Yep.
It didn't take all that long?
No.
No. We were talking about that the other day, greasing trucks. Some trucks took longer than others. We get to this year back in the day, you handsome young man.
Yeah. When I was a young man.
Yeah. And we've got a R-Series International, R190s.
Yep.
And is that you or driving for somebody?
I was driving with Trevor Deutsch.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, we spoke to,
That was taken up in the Mamakus.
because Deutsch and the Forest Products themselves had their own orange trucks, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And was Deutsch contracted to cart logs for the forest, for the New Zealand Forest Service?
Yeah, device products, yeah.
Yeah. And another one of a butter box and a couple of commas by the look of it.
Yep.
They're yours?
That's my brother-in-law,
Oh, yeah.
and that's Jackson Fleet.
Oh, right. And he's got Kenworths now, I think, maybe, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Big, is he a big way?
Very big way.
Yeah. Tell me about this Concorde. We saw you in at Barry Caulfield's place when
Yep.
he had his reunion, and you were one of, I think, it was about 10 or 11 guys standing beside it when they took all the curtains off.
Yep.
So how long did you have it?
Probably over 3 years.
Okay. And what made you get it in the first place, or did it just come up?
Well, Alf used to own it, Alf Quaife,
Yep.
and then I heard through the grapevine that it was up for sale.
Yep.
So I asked him, could I buy it? He said, yes, you could.
Right.
So I went over and bought it.
And was it everything you expected?
Everything I expected. Made me a lot of money.
Oh, wow. And I see a couple of pictures of with timber on it
Yep.
back in the day. Yeah.
I went over there with a pocket full of cash.
Cash. Money.
Cash.
Gee. Yeah, Alf and Evil Eyes would have lit up, wouldn't they? Wow, that's a lot of
yeah.
money. Yeah. And who got it after you? George Wallace?
No, I sold it to a guy called Charlie Stensness.
Oh, yes.
Never ever paid me for it.
Really? Goodness me. So, Charlie, if you're watching, you owe this man a lot of money.
He does.
Yeah. And so it was up north at round Walkworth Way.
Yeah, by a guy called Garth Hodges.
Garth Hodges. Yeah, we had a talk to Garth.
Yeah, he owned it. Yep.
And the only thing he still got of it was the original passenger's seat.
Oh, okay.
So, and
Honestly enough, that's not the original,
wasn't it?
because I had the original one in my office as my office chair.
Oh, okay.
So that was, another one was put in there in its place, because I had a double seat in there, so I could store my stuff under the seat.
Wow. So you sit two people in there.
Yeah, like my overnight bag used to go under the seat, and that was, had to make the seat like that.
Wow. And where would you overnight to?
Oh, you stay everywhere.
Oh, okay. So you get to Auckland, stay over and come back the next day, that sort of thing.
Yeah, not so much Auckland, but down the coastway.
Oh, righto. What did you take down there?
Oh, fertiliser.
Is this Alf's when he had it? Did you get the coloured
That's when Alf had it, yeah.
and did you get it changed?
I did.
Into the blue.
Yeah, well, the company would never use it like that until it was painted blue.
Wow. But I just remember back in the day, sort of backing it up, you sort of did what I always did, was open the door, put my left foot on the accelerator and stand looking backwards at the, where the Arctic's going. It's just interesting. Old drivers back in the day would back up like that, those old OLB Bedfords and trucks like that. They'd stand on the running board, left foot on the accelerator and drive it backwards.
That's right.
Yeah. Did you ever do that yourself?
Yeah, I've done it, yeah.
Yeah. And they're telling me stories about going up the deviation into Auckland at about 1, maybe 2 miles an hour, and he's just standing on the running board having a pee.
Yeah. I can remember going up the Kaimois, and you could always tell who was ahead of you, whether it was a fast truck or a slow truck, by the length of the pee. Yeah.
Anyway, my friend, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And there you go, Clarry Cartwright. On day 6 of our Mahindra 4x4 trek, we went to Arrowtown. When you get to Arrowtown, just go through to the bottom car park and you'll soon find the track that leads to Macetown. You'll cross the Arrow River about 16 times as you make your way to Macetown. Some of our trucks, including the 2 Mahindras, don't have snorkels, so we've got to take care and be careful about how deep the river is in places. The scenery along the way is absolutely spectacular and plenty of opportunities for photos. The thing to look out for is vehicles coming towards you, and the track is narrow in places, so you or them would probably need to back up and find a passing point. There are a few 4x4 commercial people who do this track regularly, and as I said, you need to watch out for them. As you travel this track, you're going into the rivers about 16 times, and pretty much the level stays the same all the way through. As long as you're sticking to the tracks, as you can see, the river's quite fast, but as long as you're sticking to the worn track, you should be okay. Once you come out of the rivers, then you start climbing, and you climb up over quite a steep hill, and lots of great scenery of the river as you travel relatively high, and some places it's a fair old drop, maybe 300 or 400 feet straight down, and you go through little rocky outcroves and things like that, which makes the trip really interesting. And as I said before, there's plenty of spectacular scenery along the way, just like this little waterfall. Well, we've arrived at Macetown, which is 15k up this winding track from Arrowtown, and as you've seen, the Mahindra have come through those river crossings, and we don't have a snorkel. So Mahindra have come up with a great idea of putting their air cleaner pretty much behind this light, which means that we can go into water up to about there, which is what, about almost a metre. And we had contingency plans, so if we come to a bit of water when one of the trucks with the snorkel went through and we thought that it was going to be too deep. So by taking the precaution of having the strap on the front, and there are a couple of other trucks around, including the other Mahindra, and we put straps on them all so we can be towed through if we actually think it's going to be too risky. But we've come all the way to Macetown. They've all come through the rivers without a snorkel, so I think that's pretty good. So the good old Mahindra done it again.